So this is one of the electives on offer today out of 3. So we'd like to start on time. So we're going to go ahead. There might be a few people who will join as we go along. So let me start by introducing our guest for today. This is Xin-Ci. Thank you so much for joining us. Let's make sure your audio. Okay. All right. And just a very quick introduction. Xin-Ci is currently just correct me if I'm wrong, you're head of marketing of Storehub, but
yes.
But you've been involved in social media, in marketing for quite a long time. You've built your own startup.
I can just do a really quick introduction.
Sure.
Might be quicker. My name is Xin-Ci. I lead the growth and marketing team and the food delivery business unit right now at Storehub. I also am a digital marketing instructor with Next Academy for the digital marketing quantum degree program. I think I've been in kind of like the startup scene for the last maybe 10 years. Very revealing of my age. So I previously co-founded a company called Watch Over Me. It was a personal safety app. And in between all my time as a founder and right now, as a head of marketing, I've also been a marketing consultant for quite a number of companies, usually seed and growth onward stage companies. But occasionally also mentor pre-seed and early stage companies in terms of their product market fit and early growth strategies with organizations like Seed Stars or 500 Startups.
Okay, thank you very much. Very impressive CV. So today, what's going to happen? Just to manage everyone's expectations, rather than Xin-Ci actually doing a full presentation, we're actually going to keep it quite informal. I am going to assume that I am a founder and that I have a business that I want to, get out into the world. And the reason for this is because when it comes to digital marketing and especially growth hacking, every single company has its own set of challenges. So it's very hard to generalize. And everyone here, I think you're all working on your own startups, your own companies, and it may be a mix from software to brick and mortar to services. So it might be easier for me to just assume that I have a certain product that I'm working on, and we will use that as an example to walk through some of the challenges. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. Let's use a very simple example. So I have a dream of setting up a cafe that sells burgers, these artisanal burgers. And so obviously the first thing that comes to my mind is I need to get on Facebook and start, telling people about this. And the reason I'm using that as a starting point is because I think that this is the go-to strategy for most founders, especially when you're starting up. But it may not always be the right way. And so that is why we have Xin here to share what are the things that you actually have to consider even before you decide that you should go onto Facebook. Okay, so I'm going to go to the next slide. And Xin, from here, you can prompt me to slide through as you need me to. Okay.
Sure. So I think I was having a chat with Hardish earlier today because I wanted to understand where most of you are in your business and what kind of products you guys are selling. But I also learned that it might be a little early for that. Now, I just wanted to just kind of set the stage here a little bit. If you guys have any questions off the top of your mind immediately as we're going through this, you don't really have to wait until the end of this presentation. You can just drop everything in the chat so you don't forget it, and we can get to it later as well. So yeah, I hear that earlier today you guys would have had sessions about brand purpose and understanding your customer psyche as well. But I'm not sure if anyone has ever talked to you about what you do with that and in terms of how do you grow the company. Now, I'm making the assumption here that most of you are early stage startups or you're just thinking of starting a business. And during this time, like your initial goals would be to identify things like product market fit, and if you're not sure what product market fit is, it's to make sure your product fits the specific market or niche or audience that you were originally thinking of selling to. And your initial goals would obviously be, well, getting even the first 100 users or the first 100 transactions or the first 100 downloads or 1,000 downloads, whatever your product is, right? And strategies, in terms of how to get there, the first hurdle in an early stage company or an early stage business is always one of the toughest ones, because at this point in time, you're operating with a lot of assumptions. You're operating with a whole series of hypotheses and just really insufficient data to prove your hypotheses. So your goal here is to make money fast, find the market that wants you, find a market that wants your product, and get enough data to be able to prove that you can hit the next 1,000 and the next 1,000 customers. So whenever I teach digital marketing, or when I work with early stage founders on their product market fit or business plans, one of the first questions I always ask them is, who is your customer actually? And when I say who is your customer, from a B2B setting, that's like, what is your ideal customer profile? And if you're a consumer side or a marketer, you would know the words customer avatar. So what is your customer avatar and what's your ideal customer profile? Now, technically, if you're selling burgers like Hadish, anybody who likes a burger is your customer, right? Anyone who wants to eat a burger is your potential customer. But that would mean several million people in, let's say, in Malaysia. So you want to continue narrowing down. If you're a physical store, your ideal customer profile might be someone within a 5 to 8 kilometer radius of your shop, right? Anyone who lives in that locality. Your customer profile or customer avatar, if you were to sell burger, for instance, would depend on the locality. If you're selling burgers in, let's say, Kapong versus selling burgers in Bangsar, your customer profiles, their wants, their needs, their psyches is super, super different. So what you want to do when you've got a product that can serve like potentially thousands, millions of people is you want to first identify your niche, right? And that's one of the most important things that you want to start with. So identify a niche, and honestly, like 1 niche, 2 niches is good enough. Pick 1 or 2 niches to try, and really flesh out your customer avatar. And I'm not going to go really deep into like exactly what a customer avatar looks like. There's so much content on Google that's free and also really good about how to create an ideal customer profile or a customer avatar. But this is super important because identifying these profiles actually helps you figure out how you want to market to them, what you want to sell, how you want to price your product, what channels to use. And we'll get into it later in Facebook, but like specifically what kind of targeting you want to select, right? Without this, you're kind of, sorry to be blunt, like you'd be spraying and praying. You'd be just kind of hosing down a bunch of things, shooting a machine gun and hoping something sticks. So the very first thing you guys want to do is actually identify who your customer is to as great a degree as possible. Now, the second question I always get asked, right, is actually no, not the second question. Once you've identified who your customer is, you want to understand what the journey is like. Now, I'm using funnel and hourglass funnel as examples here, but if and the number of stages, Hardish, you can switch to the next stage, to the next slide. So I say ditch the funnel and embrace the hourglass. This is particularly important if you are an unfunded, when I say unfunded, means you haven't raised money, you don't have a lot of money, and you're just starting from scratch, right? So this is the typical funnel you see right now. Whenever you Google like marketing funnel or sales funnel, you've got top of the funnel, which is awareness, you've got consideration, which is the middle of the funnel, and then you've got bottom of the funnel, which is a decision stage and after purchase, I don't know, like loyalty and all of that. But actually, Hardish, can you just scroll through to maybe slide number 5?
Slide number 5, okay.
Yeah. But in actual fact, today's marketing or sales funnel looks a lot more like this. And this is especially important when you don't have a crap ton of money, or you care about your ROI of money and effort spent. I'll give you an example. So where you used to have awareness, interest, demand, and action, we now have demand generation at the top, which is creating awareness, like generating interest. You have conversion, which is people taking action. But the bottom of the funnel bit is where it gets really, really interesting. It's how do you get people to repeat buy? If you were, for instance, selling a burger, after they bought, how do you get them to come back and buy again? How do you get them to come back and buy a third time? Now, if you were software, how do you get them to renew? If you're SaaS, if you are, I don't know, selling clothes, a fashion store or an e-commerce site, how do you get them to buy a second time? And lastly, is propagation, right? How do you get people to refer their friends and stay loyal and create brand affinity with your business, your brand, and get their friends to come in? Next slide. So, and this is where understanding that customer journey. Now, there are like 12 stages in this hourglass funnel. The more complex your business, the more stages you need. The simpler your business, the fewer stages you need within each bucket. So for instance, if I were selling burgers, I would probably want to generate awareness, get them to come to my shop, which is the action, get them to come again, incentivize a second purchase, and or get them to share with my friends. Super, super simple. But if you're a SaaS, building software to sell, like a software as a service SaaS company, you would extend this a lot further, right? You would be generating awareness because your product's probably a few $1,000. How do you cycle them through their consideration phase, provide them with knowledge, generate more interest before they take the first action? And that first action could even be as simple as like signing up for a free trial. And then in this case, you would see activation. For SaaS is especially true, right? Once they sign up for free trial, you want them activated. You want them to be successful in your platform, to use it well. And in this case, you would guide them through customer success, onboarding, so that they would renew when the time comes. And then once they've succeeded on your platform, or once they enjoy a burger or whatever, and then you want them to continue renewing and or referring their friends to and evangelizing your product. So these are the different types of content you want to create. And when I say content, I mean advertising campaigns, I mean social media content, I mean any kind of videos, blog posts, content, every part of every stage of this hourglass funnel. Okay, I'm going to call it funnel, even though technically it's no longer shaped like a funnel, right? And yeah, so this is if you can go to slide 7. Sorry, it's like I've got like 2 screens here. So to relate this back to a typical funnel, it is right at the top. It's, oh my God, guys, I have a problem. What is the problem? Then this is your customers saying I have a problem, you presenting a solution, helping them get to what works, right? Upsell, feature adoption, and then sharing this with other people who have the same problem as you. And this would work for a burger. This would work if you're selling software. It would work across the board. So that's the second stage of all of this. And then there's a third part, which everyone always asks me this question. I get this question a lot. And I wanted to do a quick hands up here. You guys know how to do hands up, right? Reactions in Zoom. I hope you do, because I'm going to ask anyway. How many of you always wonder, how much money should I spend on marketing? You just take a second and like see how many people. Okay, Wei Xian said yes, that's a question that he wonders. Anyone else? Or you guys already know how much money you spend marketing? Or the second one is, I got no money to spend on marketing, what do I do? Okay, just take a minute to see if anyone else replies. No? Okay, only Wei Xian. Well, I guess you guys have a lot of money then. That's maybe you guys have a lot of money, who knows? But yeah, depends on how many ads you're doing. Yeah, that's a really, really good part. But whenever someone asks me, Cinch, how much money should I spend? Well, identifying product market fit or getting to a place of growth, right? What's the percentage or what's the correct budget? And my answer to them is always as well, how much money do you have? If you are pre-seed stage, if you're pre-seed stage and you manage to already raise $1 to $2 million, and for instance, all you gotta do is build I don't know, like a website, e-commerce site and you're already funded $1 to $2 million, then you're playing in a very different field from someone who is completely unfunded. All you have is what you have in your bank account, and you're trying to prove that you have product market fit. And the growth strategy for those two are totally different. There is no rule that says in order to start a company, you need to raise X amount of money for marketing. It doesn't really work that way. I'll paint an example. One of my best friends started an e-commerce site quite a few years ago. I think Hardish, you can actually stop the screen share for now because it's not really relevant at this part. Yeah. So one of my really, really good friends, she started e-commerce site some like 10 years ago out of her garage, and her entire point, and it was selling IKEA sofa covers to anyone who bought IKEA furniture. Now, she had no money. She was fresh out of university, and all she had was whatever was in her bank account and her co-founder's bank account. So their entire growth strategy was, how can we get our first 100 customers with as little money as possible, or with the money I have in my bank account? Granted, selling IKEA sofa covers is a very high investment business. You don't like, it's not like software, you put it out one time and that's it. You need to buy material, you need to pay someone to make it, and then you need to ship it out. It's very high capital as a business. So all she had was however much money that was left over from her investment into capital, into like actually creating the product, right? So there is no hard and fast rule. There's no correct amount of spend. Now, and I'm gonna dive into a little bit about growth marketing and how can you grow if you don't have a lot of money, or if your funds for your initial starting funds might be a little limited. Now, I don't have a whole bunch of slides here because I actually assumed that this was going to be more of a fireside chat, but this works as well. So growth market. So if you guys have like random questions, just pile it on and I will answer whatever I can while I'm sharing all of this. So growth marketing is actually not just Facebook. I know that Hardish mentioned it earlier, like how do you do Facebook and all that, but growth marketing is really, really not just on Facebook. Your first 100 customers does not have to rely on advertising. In fact, if the first 100 customers you get are purely driven from advertising, then you would have to question like how you would be able to scale to 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 customers without spending that same ratio of money on advertising. Now, there are a handful of ways that you can start. And I'm not even going to say things like influencer marketing, by the way, because all that's still money. One of the biggest, easiest ways once you got maybe your first 1 or 2 customers is incentivizing things like referral marketing. And why I say referral, what is referral marketing? Let's take Hardish's example of a burger shop. You get your first customer in, they get a burger. Do they love your burger? If they love your burger, incentivize them to like take a photo and Instagram it. Do you guys remember how, I'm not sure how many of you here are from KL, but if you're from KL, you would remember how my burger lab got super, super famous and really popular in the early days. How many of you remember like how you learned about my burger lab? Okay. You guys can like just drop a chat or turn off your mic and just share how you remember, how you found out about my burger lab. It's moments like this, right, that I actually really, really miss physical like events. So Sam said, social media or blogs probably. and Janice said a friend. Vincent said free burger. Most people actually say social media and blogs. But what was appealing about that burger when you first learned about it? If you guys forgot, My Burger Lab was the very first burger place that popularized the charcoal bun, right? They had these great photos of a charcoal bun burger and like one of those crispy cheese thingies. For life of me, I don't know what they're called. It's like a crispy cheese thing. So it looked really, really appetizing. But it was so strange because everyone else's burger buns were brown. And My Burger Lab's burger was like was actually like black, a charcoal bun. Sam will say, were they also nasi lemak burger or was that someone else? I don't quite remember, Sam. That's a really, really good point. But suddenly, everyone was taking photos of the burger. They went there. Nobody knew how good it tasted. Sure, there were a handful of people that said, oh, it tastes best burgers in KL. But come on, all of us first were intrigued by the fact that they had this like brown burger and crispy, like black burger and crispy cheese, right? That is referral marketing. That is spreading the word. How much money did it cost them? Not much. It cost them their product, right? They might have incentivized certain bloggers to come and review by giving them free burgers at some point in time, but that compared to Facebook advertising would have been way cheaper. They built a product that was meant to be shared. Now, most of us discover cafes, food, and restaurants today on Instagram. Why? Because the Instagrammable cafe or food culture has taken Malaysia and the world by a storm. So if you're opening a physical shop, like having an Instagrammable like type shop is almost necessary nowadays. Sam said, great point on being visually distinctive, especially in a super visual social media age. Exactly. So if you're selling physical products, right, visual distinction is really, really critical. Now, what if you're selling software? Like you can't have Instagrammable software. Excellent point. Referral marketing. Now let's talk about referral marketing that is semi like I never call things are not free. You either pay for something with time and effort or money. So I would say lowest monetary cost type of marketing. I'm not sure how many of you remember Dropbox in the early days. And if you're not sure, you want to learn a lot more about it, you should go and Google Dropbox growth loop. But for now, I'm just going to briefly talk about what Dropbox did. Dropbox, when it first came out, like nobody really believed in Dropbox. Let me just tell you this. Everyone was still on USB pen drives at the time. But, and I remember the founder of Dropbox actually posted a summary of the Dropbox product on a hacker group, their Y Combinator, and it was a hacker group. And there were so many detractors. Everyone was saying the cloud's unstable, not everyone has stable internet, and the pen drive, they're still used for pen drive. But what Dropbox did was Dropbox recruited users by giving everyone free 2 gigabytes. When you join, you get 2 gigabytes free, but for every additional gigabyte of storage you want, you can refer a friend. And Sam just says, my 60-year-old dad still asks friends and relatives to get Dropbox so that he can expand his free storage. Exactly, that's a growth loop. That's using your product to incentivize referrals and get more users, right? It wasn't just Dropbox. So when Dropbox really exploded when they did this, but there were a handful of other startups that also tried to mimic the same thing. So Airbnb in their really early days, and until today still, right? You get monetary credit for referring friends to be either hosts or customers, like I don't know what they call it, renters on Airbnb. Growth loops. Gmail, when Gmail first came into the market, and I don't know how many of you, I don't know how old most of you are, but I was in my first year of uni or like A levels when Gmail first came in the market. Every new Gmail user only had between 2 to 5 invites to give their friends. Super, super exclusive. People were selling Gmail invites for thousands of dollars on forums before they eventually expanded it to 10 people and all that. Gmail created a sense of exclusivity with regards to their product, incentivizing referrals. So referral marketing and using your product to market is actually like a really, really huge opportunity in growth hacking or growth marketing that many people overlook when they're first starting a business. And if you're going to start any new business, any new startup, right? Even if you had $1 million in your bank account or like 10 million bucks or whatever crazy number, you always want to close this growth loop. Why? Because of return on advertising spend and ROI. If your top funnel, if you're pumping money in right at the top funnel, and that's with advertising, with like generating awareness, if you're just have to keep pumping money at the top, and there's just a leaky pipe everywhere, like things are just leaking, you just need to pump more and more and more money. The whole idea of an hourglass funnel is so that every dollar you spend at the top gets you more dollars as it circles around. So that's really, really critical in part of growth marketing. So that's one of the biggest things for growth marketing here. But now let's get into a little bit, the second thing that I always really recommend most business owners start with. And now I'm going to caveat this. This doesn't work if you're selling fashion. Well, it doesn't work as much. If you're selling fashion, doesn't work as much if you're an F&B. But this really works for niche products. So for instance, software, for instance, is a really good niche. Before I even touch Facebook, Google search ads. So SEO and search ads take up space in the same channel. Unless you're, I don't know, in China, then it's more Baidu than anything else. But it all takes place on Google. One requires money, the other one requires time and effort. SEO is time and effort, search ads is money. If you want it fast, search ads is probably one of the most affordable, high ROI ways to get your first couple of users. Now, why does it work for software or niche products better than it works for, let's say, fashion, fast fashion, and e-commerce? Because when I'm looking for, let's say I have a party to go to and I want a red dress, I'm never going to go to Google and search for red dress. I might go to Zalora, I won't even go to Lazada or Shopee to search for red dress. I will already go to the brands that I know might sell the kind of fashion that I want. But if I'm looking for, and I always use Storehub as an example, a point of sale or like a loyalty system for my shop, chances of me going to Google are super high. And you want to be right at the top. And Google search ads, you only pay per click. If someone doesn't click, you pay nothing, right? So, and you really quickly are able to dominate page one, like, you know, with a few campaigns, and that's about it. And so Anwar asked, what would you say is the most optimized cost and effectiveness digital marketing means for fashion-related content of fashion-related products? Now, when you say fashion-related products, I'm immediately assuming fashion-related products are clothes or makeup, beauty, and so on and so forth. Now, which leads me to, I think, what everyone wants to learn about today, which is Facebook. Now, for software, for pretty much anything outside of e-commerce, Facebook advertising is really not the highest, not necessarily the highest ROI channel in the early days. When you're first starting, your first 100 customers. In fact, I would argue that Facebook advertising is also not the most high ROI generating for like F&B in the early days. But Facebook is particularly useful for validating early stage fashion e-commerce. And when I say early stage fashion e-commerce, I mean like you still have to do your standard branding stuff, like making sure people know that your business is legit and not a scam. That's still very important. But Facebook is a fast way for fashion otherwise. Now, so how do you want to use Facebook? Hardish, do you mind sharing again?
Yep. Okay. Okay, do you have this?
Yes, you can go down to the next one. So okay. I'm assuming most of you would have You can go to slide number 9.
Okay.
Thank you. I'm assuming most of you would have used Facebook at some point in time. You would have already tried like boosting a post, right? As an example. But if you're fashion, the first thing you want to do is actually not boost a post. You actually want to set up Facebook campaigns that are conversion focused so that your ultimate objective is return on ad spend. It's called ROAS on Facebook. If you've never heard it, I'm just going to write it in a chat here in case you guys can't hear it. ROAS, which stands for return on ad spend, is return of investment of your advertising spend, essentially. Now, this is where your entire niche identifying your ICP or customer avatar really comes in play. Because when you know exactly who your niche is, who they are, what they like, what they don't, you can actually start targeting more heavily on Facebook. Now, this screenshot is an example of some of the interest categories Hardish found on his Facebook account. You can actually go to your Facebook preferences and see what you've been tagged at. It's a pretty fun exercise, actually. So as an example, why I don't fully trust Facebook categories, there are over 300 interest, 3,000 or something like that, some stupid number, Facebook categories for interest categories that you can target, and interest categories that you can be a part of as a consumer. And not all of them are accurate. For instance, fun fact, Hardish enjoys American football. Who would have thought? Do you enjoy American? Are you interested in American football, Hardish?
I am not interested in American football at all.
Hardish is also really interested in beauty. So maybe Hardish is a very metrosexual man. Who knows, right? Hardish is also a huge fan of the human gastrointestinal tract. Like, so I don't personally, Facebook's algorithm is always a mystery to me and pretty much every other marketer. We think we know, we make hypotheses about we know about how Facebook assigns interests, but we don't really know except for the people who built the algorithm. This is why I never trust interest targeting on the get-go. If you open a burger shop saying, I want to reach everybody who likes burgers, that's not going to get you anywhere. Burgers alone is not a strong interest targeting category. This is why your customer avatar is so important. You need to really think about who your customer is. Let's say I'm selling a burger. What is my burger price point? If my burger costs 5 ringgit, is a totally different customer segment compared to my burger costs 30 bucks, or 40 bucks, or even 25 bucks. Those are really expensive burgers in this day and age. Not very expensive, but definitely on the above average range. Let's say you have a 30 ringgit burger. Who can afford a 30 ringgit burger? Who wants to pay for a 30 ringgit burger? These are people who are medium to high spenders. What language would they likely speak? English, Chinese, Malay? Like, you want to really nail down your customer avatar and what your customer might want. If I spend on a 30 ringgit burger, would that customer say shop at Zara versus Mango versus Uniqlo? Is there a difference here? So are people who eat burgers, a 30 ringgit burger, likely to be male or female? Are they likely to be school graduates, right? Like, are they likely to have graduated from school? Are they likely to drive certain cars? So you want to really identify different niches of interest categories. You want to identify different customer avatars and build interest targeting on Facebook that attacks those avatars. If you've already got an existing customer list, like let's say 1,000, 2,000 customers, unique customers, you can create lookalike audiences on Facebook to be able to tell Facebook's algorithm, here, I want more customers who look like this segment, right? That's really important. And if you hit up the next slide, and this leads into things like, sorry. And this leads into things like location. You should never run a Facebook ad that targets the whole of Malaysia, even if your product technically could target the whole of Malaysia. Like if you were e-commerce fashion, you want to break it down because shoppers in KL and shoppers in Penang, I'm from Penang, they want and care about two totally different things. And if your campaign works better in Penang than it does in KL, you want to be able to stop the one that's not doing well and optimize that campaign later, right? So you want to be able to split things up. One of the campaign splits I always recommend is splitting by language, splitting by location. Tier 1 cities, which is like KL, Tier 2, which is JB, Penang, as an example, and like Tier 3, which is every other city like outside, let's say Ipoh, Malacca, they're Tier 3, much smaller, but also very highly targeted and highly niche. And within each of them, you want to identify if your customer avatar is the same avatar across each market. Now, this would be for e-commerce or online as an example. But what if you're a physical shop? Physical shop, the most important thing you need to remember is your location radius from your shop. You want to pick a 5 to 8 km radius. Now, unless you are a specialty niche, like, I don't know, give me some niche. You sell puzzles in a physical shop, and if I live in Rawang and no one sells puzzles, I'm going to freaking drive all the way to uptown to get a puzzle. Unless you are a niche hobbyist, if you sell burgers, you obviously want to limit it to a 5 to 8 km radius. You want to make sure that all your ads, you actually understand like whether it works by incentivizing a single promo that's associated to the ad, so that when they actually physically come into your store, you know that they came in from this ad or a different kind of ad. Or if you're doing food delivery, you want to be able to send them to your food delivery and track your return on ad spend so that you know where it came from. Now, this is where Facebook makes sense, and physical store, please remember radius targeting. Why I never recommend beyond an 8 km radius is you want to exhaust the people in your immediate circle first, before like who already know your brand. So I live in like PJ, and I'm aware of most of the shops around PJ. But if I was advertised like a restaurant in Kapong, I would not have heard of it, even if it's an amazing restaurant. But my friends who live in Kapong would totally know of the place. So you really want to be a lot stricter with this radius thing. Yeah, and that's about it for Facebook. We're gonna go into like a quick Q&A, just being mindful of the time here, 20 minutes left. And I think that you can kill the screen share now. Hardish. I think ultimately with growth marketing, as an example, one of the most important things you must remember is everything at this stage of your business is just a hypothesis. So your goal here is to come up with a hypothesis, identify how to measure it, test, and iterate fast. You want to make a lot of like strong opinions and strong assumptions, but you want to hold them very weakly. Everything you know about your brand purpose, your customer avatars could be wrong, and that's okay. We've all cycled through wrong customer avatars and customer profiles before, and wrong growth strategies. So you want to just test, iterate fast and as quickly as you can in the least expensive manner. And if you guys have any questions, now is a really good time. Or Hardish, if you want to like prompt by asking a few questions first, if there were other questions beforehand.
Yeah, so coming back to, you know, for example, I think maybe if I could just draw some relevance to what we've been reading in the past couple of months, you know, for example, when it comes to Facebook, the data and the personal data. So the slide that we saw just now about my interests, that is what Facebook thinks that I am interested in. And, you know, just the context for everyone, in fact, it was about 10 pages deep when I had to scroll through it. And it was really quite shocking in the sense that, you know, that's what Facebook thinks I like. And the reason I think that's relevant is because coming back to this burger restaurant that I want to set up, the first thing I do is I would go to Facebook. I would assume that I know what people are interested in. I would then put it into the interest, and I'll put in money, and then I'll hope that you know, it will actually reach these people. But I think the point that you were trying to share is that a lot of that money is probably being misallocated to people who don't actually have the interest that you think they do. Right? Okay, are there any questions from anyone in the group? Okay, so there's one from
Sam. Yeah, Sam just asked.
Kind of
so attempting summary. Oh, sorry, are you speaking, Sam?
I was just reading. It's just trying to summarize what I think you were saying, which is that like if I'm just doing blind Facebook spend based on interest, it's probably not the most efficient, and like I should optimize more on like my customer avatars first.
Yes, I think regardless of whether you're using Facebook or not, you really need to identify your ideal customer profile or customer avatar. Now, there are different words for it. I use both words because I think depending on like, so that you guys can just Google which formula and what kind of psychographic analysis matches your business, the business that you run best. I'll give you an example, right? Like if your customer avatar is let's say 14-year-old kid from KL, the referral marketing strategy that you want to employ might be a bit different from a 30-year-old in KL. So at the basis of everything, of your entire business, you need to identify who's the niche you're going to target.
Could you also talk about when it comes to hyper localizing? Given that, especially in Malaysia, there's so many different races, so many different languages, and of course, among Chinese, Indian, Malays, we may all have people who actually enjoy burgers. All of them have different fashion interests. So how do you actually manage something like that? Do you have to create different ads in different languages with different visuals, different creatives?
I think it depends on your company and your avatar. So like, I think we don't like creating stereotypes, right? As human beings, but marketing and growth marketing is all about stereotypes. And it really helps guide you and narrow things down a lot. So a good friend, a friend of mine, she sells, I think they sell feminine hygiene products like organic tampons, for example. And their entire branding, their entire strategy is geared towards the more, for lack of a better description, woke, maybe 30 and above women, and who care about organic products and who are not price sensitive, clearly, because organic products cost a lot of money. And so in that sense, all of her marketing, all her ads would obviously target English speaking audience a little bit more. Race doesn't really matter. They're an English speaking audience. Age, they need to have money to spend, so they're thinking 28 and above. The yuppies, I heard that yuppie is a very like Gen Y, Gen X term, young urban professionals who have money to spend, and they usually fall within a certain upper middle class criteria range, right? So she, for instance, would not run Chinese ads, or she would not run even like Malay ads, or if she did run a Malay ad, it wouldn't be like the SMS language style, as an example. The seafood Facebook ad style might not be that. Now, contrast this with Kotex, which is more like a feminine hygiene product brand. And for all the men here who are a little bit uncomfortable with my feminine hygiene products example, too bad. But contrast that with Kotex. They would run ads in pretty much every other language. A, they also have a significantly bigger budget. B, is a very affordable price range, and the customer avatars for Kotex would be more varied, and there'll be more avatars, more people who want to buy a Kotex product compared to Bubble, as an example, at this point in time. So yeah, it would depend on your business. If you're selling clothes, for example, the kind of clothes you sell might appeal more to certain demographics and other demographics. So you want to feel free to identify which one is your highest ROI demographic. And Do you want to run ads in multiple languages, in multiple creatives? The question is, how much money do you have? Because in order to do that effectively, you need to spend quite a bit of money. So you want to take a stab and guess first. And then if that doesn't work, you extend to another avatar, as an example.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, I will, so I know some of the participants here today, so if they don't mind, I'm gonna maybe use some of them as examples, or rather the segments they are working in. So for example, at least it might be useful to them and to everyone else. So Wei Shen, for example, Wei Shen, you're here. Wei Shen is in a very interesting segment. He runs a company that looks at DNA testing. So this is, they send out test kits with your saliva that you send back to the lab, and then you get a DNA profile.
Like 23andMe.
Yes.
I was a 23andMe like long time ago, like 8-9 years ago. So
okay.
With that.
So my question is, I'm just going to assume that if I'm Wei Shen and I was trying to grow this business, first of all, it's a very specialized category within the medical technology sector. It's not okay, and then also is a very new idea for probably most people in Malaysia, where you're getting your DNA profile. So I assume that it's going to have to be a whole range of different approaches from not just Facebook, but also maybe giving out referral packages, working with pharmacies, providing discounts. And I think it would be interesting to hear from Wei Shen if you're willing to share some of the challenges you've had, because it's a very unique product.
Hi, Hadish, can you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you.
Hey, hi, Xin-Ci is Wei Shen here. So I'm running a biotech or a health tech startup called Advanced Health. So thanks for the introduction from Hadish. So basically, we sell. It's like a bit like 23andMe, but the only thing that we don't do like 23andMe is they provide ancestry report. So we provide more towards the health and wellness part. So I think so far our challenges will be.
I think I didn't hear you earlier because my business.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah. What's the name?
Yep. Advanced Health. So ADVANX Health.
Mm-hmm.
So so our challenge so far has been, I think one of the most important thing that you have shared just now was the awareness part. Although Malaysians somehow they would know about DNA testing, but then it's not like the 10% of the Malaysians know about what is a DNA testing. And then what we try to do along the way is we want to put up educational content, but you want to find a more effective way to get people to interact with the content that we have so far. So we have run Google Ads. I think Google Ads are good and we can get leads, but then we couldn't convert them into a customer as effective. So we try to work on the Facebook ads, but Facebook ads somehow is quite limiting for healthcare because they always reject some of the ads, some of the keywords. Yep. So would really happy to hear some of your ideas and thoughts about, especially in the healthcare spaces, how could we break through and get more people to interact with maybe more niche and content.
Yeah, I mean, naturally, healthcare, like shit ton of restrictions, cigarette products, alcohol, all this falls within that category of really hard to advertise on Facebook in a direct manner. First, thanks for sharing all that context, Wei Shen. Really appreciate that. But the most important question, I always ask this question whenever someone brings up business: how much is your product?
So our product range between $50 the most cheapest one could be around 499 ringgit. Up to the most expensive one is about 1,500 ringgit.
Okay, so I go back to, have you identified which customer segment in the whole of Malaysia is most likely to buy a product? And it can be a yes or no. You don't have to elaborate too much. Have you decided like, okay, for each of the product ranges?
Yeah, so we identify, I think, in most two categories. So one category is between 34 to probably up to 32. That's the range where they most care about wellness, skincare, nutrition, weight management. And then anyone above 32 to 40, we target more towards like young family. So they will actually buy packages for their children as well, because we do tests for, like, for example, talent discovery. So you can know your children's talents. And then so I think that right now that's the two categories that we have identified so far as our customer base.
Now, so just for context, everybody, 499 to 1,005 in Malaysia is an expensive product.
Yep.
Means like this means you can only hit up upper middle class and above, right? And probably the people who just drop this cash are like what Malaysia considers T20. So they would earn like 10K and above.
Okay.
Because, I mean, if you think about it, when 23andMe first launched, and this was a few years ago, I was in San Francisco at the time, which is why I bought a package. And 23andMe was a brand new DNA. They were one of the earliest DNA testing product around, actually. And it actually, if I were you, I would research how 23andMe became popular. Not today, but like their early growth strategies, which I thought were pretty brilliant. The super early days, including the way they discounted their products as well. Very well done in the early days. But that's besides the point. 49. So you say top 20, 10K and above. I would break it down further. A 24-year-old how many 24-year-olds own 10K? Earn 10K. You want beauty and wellness? I tell you who cares more about beauty and wellness. Women age 27 and above, up to 45. They care the most about that shit. My friends spent way more money on beauty shit the moment they hit 30 or close to 30 than they ever did below that.
Okay.
So like, if you care about beauty and wellness, there's women who are like approaching 30 all the way up to 45. They care about it the most. It's a huge industry, guys. And I know because I sit in that segment, and all my friends sit in that segment. So this is what I mean by you need to really understand your customer psyche, right? And really understand, okay, look, you don't price your products according to what you think your customers might want to buy. You price your products in a way that makes sense for your unit economics of your business, and then you find people who can buy. And if it's a big enough pool, good for you. If it's a small enough pool, tailor your product a bit more. And in this case, you want to really, really identify your psyche. Now, once you've done all of that, right, and you understand, let's take this 28 to 45 segment, and break it down, and 28 to 45 women segment, and break it down even further. 28 to 35 have very different concerns from 35 to 45. So let's focus on one segment, 28 to 35. I only focus on that segment because I think I'm a bit more familiar with it immediately without doing research. And like within that segment, what they care about at this age, you're investing in things like anti-aging. So you identify topics that this segment might care about. You want like your DNA product, chances are it's high chance that most of them are English speaking. What news media would they read? Because you don't just want to create content, you want to make sure that content gets read. So that age range might read things like Welcome Post, would still read Says, for instance. Yep. So if you're going to invest money in creating brand awareness and awareness of your product, you want to focus on some of these channels, right? Urban, obviously, because someone who lives in Ipoh in that range might not care, but someone who lives in KL would be sufficiently urbanized, already familiar with DNA testing, whether it's Circle DNA, because Circle is advertising really, really heavily, or 23andMe, right? Like people in the tech industry who's been very aware of all these products for a long time. now. So then you want to generate that awareness, right? So you want to think about awareness generation at the top of the funnel and create content that is more around like your reliability as a brand. These guys would care most about not just, it's not an impulse buy thing. You don't impulse buy DNA test kit, by the way. You would research the shit out of it, like, oh, will it be accurate or not, right? So that's like awareness. And then you want content for consideration, where it's more about the reliability of your testing. How many people have you tested so far to be able to come to all of these things? That's a consideration phase to help people, move people from a lead into consideration. And you want to remarket everybody who knows about your brand. And then after that, you will move into like, once they've taken action, how do you get people to refer? Now, so on a basic set of like content, that's what you need to set up. How do you get around Facebook? How you get around Facebook is you never literally say that your content cures anything. You actually probably can never advertise your product itself.
Understand.
Chances are you can never advertise your DNA testing kit. If you guys notice a Circle DNA, and there's this beautiful tool called Facebook Ads Library, go Google it. I want you to they have it's always like, oh my god, like it's a video, right? Selfie video. Wow, like I just got my service. I am going to unbox this and see what the process is like. It's a social proof video of a
Okay.
Right? Because you can never advertise vape, e-cigarettes, cigarette, healthcare products directly like that.
Understand.
Yeah. So you want to understand like at which phase your customer, then for awareness to be like, oh, it can be titles like a blog post as how your genetics impact how fast how impact your aging, right?
Yeah.
30, I'm like 30 something, right? Trust me, I'm going to click and read that shit.
Okay.
Yeah, so you do that, you filter it out, and then you remarket them with all this social proof stuff that is not directly advertising your product.
Understand.
Yeah. But you want to break it down, like those segments are really broad.
Yep. Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
All right.
I hope
Okay.
that answers the question and goes deeply a bit more.
Right, so we've come to 2:45. I promise Xin-Ci will start on time and end on time because she has something else after this. Thank you very much. Just for me to wrap up, I think where I was coming with when I programmed this session was, the fact is that we've seen a lot of startups raise money and then a portion of that goes into marketing budget. But when we ask them what they're actually going to do with that marketing, it turns out that they just throw it onto Facebook. And so we just want to give everyone pause, and maybe there are a few more things you have to consider before you attempt Facebook marketing. But even when you do attempt Facebook marketing, there are probably even more things to consider. So obviously we can't cover everything within 1 hour, but I hope what Xin has shared is enough for you to understand what are the resources you can go and research further. And hopefully in the near future, we'll try to program something more integrated in terms of, maybe a full day program, especially on growth hacking. So thank you very much, Xin. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
And for everyone else, I know we had to rush through some of the previous breaks. So we're going to start the final session at 4 o'clock so that you have a little bit more breather right now to grab a coffee, maybe have a nap if you need to. So we'll see everyone back in the main room at 4 o'clock. Thank you very much, everybody.
If you guys have more questions or whatever, you can follow me on LinkedIn. I can just search my name on LinkedIn. I'm also on Instagram at Cinchness, and I'm more responsive there. Whatever you do, do not add me on Facebook. Yes, so just FYI. So yeah, I'm happy to take more questions offline if needed. Thanks, guys. Bye.
Thank you very much. Thank you.